Yeah, we got the green screen, so we should be all set.
Then we'll give Bob another minute.
There it is.
Okay.
To vote the 3 capital items.
So good evening, everyone. Tonight is Tuesday, January 9th. This is the advisory meeting. We are here tonight. We'll be visiting with the treasurer, the accountant, the Conservation Commission, Parks and Rec, and then we'll close things out with some advisory business. So, first up is our treasurer. You are welcome to come on down. And you are new to this whole environment.
I am on this budget.
With the town of Bolton.
With the town of Bolton.
Yes. Previously from
Worked in
Hubbardston.
Yes.
My mom lives right on Main Street in Hubbardston.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
So, the idea here is we've got, under your, as you well know, under your direction, that we have several numbers that we'll go through. We'll start off with 145 for everyone here. So the salary and stipend and wages, those are all in place. That is a function of your new employment, and the COLAs have been put in, or
Yes.
anything of that nature. Okay. So, Kristen, if you want to take us through, the remainder of the budget, longevity moving forward, share with us a little bit of what's happening and what direction you're heading in.
All right, so longevity would be the first item. I have a spreadsheet right here that Donna had created last year. So basically, we have 2 additional employees that will be eligible in fiscal 19. So it only went up just a little bit. 8,500 should cover. The 83 was a little bit high for 18, but the 85 was more than enough to cover the 2 additional employees for fiscal 19.
Okay.
So that's why that was an increase. Now, this is good news. I talked to Donna just recently about this. I wasn't aware. The purchases of service for $6,000, that can be eliminated from this line, this budget. That was for the, was that for the
Wage and compensation.
Wage and comp study.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which I actually have right here.
Huh.
I have 3 copies, and there's only 3 because it was really thick. So that's the deal. I didn't write the note, but we have the wage.
Is that from Donna? She hasn't been in.
No, it must be Linda. Yeah, there's an L.
Brad, I think that one is for
That's for
Parks
the,
and Rec.
yeah, that's for the Parks and Rec director.
Oh.
That is
That's
not,
That's not.
Holy smokes, that's right.
yeah.
All right. Wow. Sorry.
I was like, wow, I haven't even seen it yet.
Yeah. So, well, there goes my next question. So you guys, you haven't had a chance to look at it and see what lovely information has been gleaned from it.
I think
Okay.
she thought mid-February.
Okay. Well, either way, you're right. $6,000 gone.
So there
I like you already.
So did I add it back now? All right, software support. There is a contractual increase with Vadar on the collection side. It's up to $11,500. The difference is Harper's payroll service. Harper's, I can't put an actual figure on that because it's based on the number of checks that are processed bi-weekly or direct deposit stubs. So it's just a little bit, what did we do from 18 to 19?
Okay.
And that again covered the increase. It was about an $800 increase to Vadar for the collection.
How long is the contract do we have?
3 years. So we're locked in
Year.
for an additional 3 years. This is year 1 of 3 at the higher rate. So that should actually be able to remain steady for next year. Postage is what it is. We obviously have to pay for the quarterly mailings as well as the motor vehicle commitment, so I just level funded that. tax taking, I wasn't sure. I know we had a $500 budget. We, just this year alone, have, we're in a deficit right now, which I know at the end of the year we can work with. $500 is only it's $75 each time we do.
Yeah.
We have to pay for the cost of the advertising, and then if it does go into tax title, it's a $75 lien to the registry.
Yeah, and I remember Donna mentioning that she had been doing more activity around that front.
Yeah, Michelle's been very busy with that, unfortunately.
Bigger developers.
Yeah. Okay.
So realistically, and you'll see why I increased that by 500. And I know at the end of the year we can, do some transfers, but I've decreased some of the line items at the, as we go forward as well. So
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we have that covered. Office supplies, I just level funded 2,100. Bank charges, primarily that would be for the cost of the band that we do every June.
If on office supplies, we've never had an actual in the $2,100 range, is there a basis for the 2,100?
No.
We have a 847
Yeah,
and
the highest is 16,
56.
back 2015, 16.
And with more computers now, I don't know.
It's something we could, I haven't gone through a full year yet, so I know I'm just buying the general, just the miscellaneous things here and there. Anashka, do you know if anything
We're
else
halfway through
is
2017.
incorporated in the 2,100 other than general?
Copy repair,
Okay,
Which-
yeah.
which that thing, I would leave it only because that thing is,
We haven't done anything with it.
Dying.
We haven't spent the money, but we
Okay.
should.
and it's,
Just doesn't seem like history supports it. So,
well, I think the copier is getting old, and that's the line item we use, and it's, a couple $100 for the guy to walk in the door.
What does it take?
As of December, we're halfway through that.
Yeah,
replace the
just check
copier?
with-
So
Oh God, I don't
So
even
it's
know,
pretty-
but
that's
I'm
on
sure.
target.
yeah.
That was a gift from, I think it was Future Electronics, when they moved.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's,
Okay.
we'll keep, we'll keep.
Yeah, no,
Well, I understand the burn rate is just
Yeah.
about right.
Yeah.
50% of the year, 50%.
Yeah, I was in Ted's camp until Brian mentioned what he just mentioned, so. All right.
So that is what that is. And then nextly, we are, again, bank charges would be the cost of the band, which is very costly. We do that every June. Educational assistance, I believe that I did level fund. I am required to go to schooling every year to maintain my certification. In-state travel, I definitely cut a little bit. I know Donna was very involved with many associations, different groups.
Yeah.
She traveled a lot more than I will be.
Okay.
So I cut that by almost $800. Dues are what they are. We are members of the Worcester County Collectors and Treasurers, as well as Mass
Mhm.
Treasurer Collector, and that's both for Michelle and I. And meetings, I also cut down a little bit, about $600. Again, I'm not going to be doing,
Yeah.
other than probably, I'll be much more local.
All right.
But Michelle would be taking out of that one item.
There's a chance that Donna might be watching this, so it really does sound as though getting rid of her was a good thing.
Oh.
I'm
You didn't
kidding.
mean that.
It has been 2 months since I spoke to her. It was just too good.
She'll come back for the HR stuff and you can,
No, it has been so wonderful to have her here as a resource. Okay, I'm not just saying that, but no, it really has been. Because you don't get that opportunity a lot when you come into a new town and take
Yeah.
on a position.
Yeah.
So that's been great. So that in a nutshell, that's pretty straightforward.
On longevity, you said more than enough, is it? Can you quantify how much more than enough?
We need, well,
I'm
actually,
just wondering,
according
there's an
to these,
opportunity there to kind of,
we could actually bring longevity if we needed to down to 8,000.
I'll take that.
Because we have a 250 and 350, we have 2 additional Yeah, we can do, if you want to take that down, so we can take that down to
That's good.
8,000.
So your total would be down, wouldn't have that, because you cut out the 6,000.
So, yeah, longevity would be
6,500,
8,000,
okay.
6,000 would be zeroed out. We'll keep the 19, 71, 1,000, we'll keep the
21,
21
43.
Yep.
Okay,
So
so
we did-
longevity goes from 85
to 8,000. Yep.
Okay.
62,712.
All departments should follow the role model leader.
I have to show you, it's my first year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we did, and we, like I said, the educational in-state travel and meetings, we were able to decrease as well, so.
All right. So subject to those, any further discussion?
So that's 14,000 minus reduction.
Just take 2,500 off the bottom.
Oh,
Yeah.
162,712.
Yep.
162 what?
162,712.
All right. I'm sorry, any other questions from advisor? Okay. Entertain a motion to approve.
I was adding different numbers.
All right. Entertain a yeah, 145 for 162,712.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Next up, 710.
Okay, so that would be the debt. That is what it is based on the schedules that we had created when we first rolled some of these projects out. Now, the long-term debt obviously is going to stand as is. The band, depending on which capital projects that you adopt and we roll in, would obviously change the amount of the band. And then we do have schedules based on each of the projects that are proposed, based on the useful life. So if we were to go forward with those, the amounts are outlined.
Kristen, I had a question about the debt. Can you remind me what the status of the repeaters, the police repeaters is?
We have borrowed for that and we have not rescinded, have we, or we
Well, we won't renew that in the band next year.
will actually.
I still haven't gotten paperwork for it, but
So there's, because right now it looks like there's a requested appropriation for FY19.
I should have taken it off. Do you have?
It would be the very last portion of our debt service budget. It's like the last, shows up as page 14.
Oh, Kristen, it's off on yours, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, so there's a new one. So my question is, do you want to vote on the debt tonight when you don't know what? Probably not, I don't think so.
No.
Okay.
Until we know what capital stuff we're borrowing for.
Yes, correct, but either way, that one should come off because that was covered by a grant, right?
Yes. I was hesitant to take it off until I saw the actual paperwork.
Yeah,
But I did eventually take it off, but I still haven't seen the paperwork.
Okay.
But Don has assured us that it's a deal.
okay. Yeah, we should,
So I just added, I think, was it 4 things, potential,
Yep.
culvert, fire truck, culvert, boilers, and another thing. Oh, the big truck, one of the DPW trucks.
okay.
I just put any capital request over 100,000 on there just for placeholders.
All right, so we wouldn't see that in this?
No.
Okay. All right, and that was in the email that you sent today?
Yeah.
On the, okay. And then, we're gonna also wanna have a conversation on, like we always do with the past articles.
Absolutely.
Right, there's a
Yeah.
couple that are really starting to,
Yeah, we should talk about, stuff that's left in articles,
Go
other
long in the
available
tooth.
funds, cell
Yeah.
towers, overlay, ambulance, at some point we'll have
Yeah.
to sit down and talk about how we fund everything,
no, exactly. And that,
once we get through this.
that's right. We'll get through these 6 nights of budget. Okay. You guys okay with we just had a little glimpse of the debt on 710, 752, but we'll pass over and regroup on this later. And I'm sure we won't make you come back in and listen to us vote. I mean,
No problem if I need to.
sure. So if we move on to 911,
After all of my savings, this is not great news, but this is what it is.
yeah,
Worcester Regional Assessment, Donna had actually worked on this as well, so we did anticipate a 9% increase. It's a placeholder. That's the trend that we have been seeing. Again, we don't have actual numbers. We should get those usually in February.
Okay.
As soon as we get those, we can plug the actual figure in.
Yeah.
That's sadly.
so, and that one to me just doesn't make any sense, given the degree of which the market ripped in 17. You would think that that would have taken up some of the slack on their assumptions for interest rate and.
I think they look back further. I don't know if they're as caught up as the market. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know when they change, it used to be based on the total payroll, and now they do it all actuarial. They changed completely the way they have calculated, and it's never been
Yeah.
in anyone's favor with the new.
Is there,
system.
I'm putting you on the spot, and I probably should have asked Donna this a long time ago, but do we have the ability? Jesus. She probably did that.
She's watching.
I know. I think there is a need for it. I'm wondering about if we might be able to see the formula calculation.
We can get some, we do have, I don't know how.
Not that we're going to be able to have
Right.
any input,
Mhm.
but
It'd be good to understand how they come up with it.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Every year they do have an annual meeting, and we can go and I can get an outline detail of the town and where it's historical as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'll provide that as soon as that's available.
Well, I mean, if you think about, to me, guys, you've probably heard me talk about this now for years. I sound like a broken record, but we had a couple of departments in here last week, and we were talking about requested number relative to actuals. And on this line item, look at the 15 actual, 247,000, and 4 short years later, 408. You're absolutely right, the trend is only north as larger percentages of the baby boom retire. And this environment of pension for life with assumed interest rates probably in the neighborhood of 7 or 8%. So, all right, I'm off my soapbox. Okay.
Workers' comp, I actually don't have a lot of information to base those figures on. Would you have?
I think that's Linda.
Linda,
I don't even
yeah.
think that's you.
Okay.
I think she gets it part of her insurance packet,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah, and that one does always seem to come in late, right? That's always a late ad.
Probably. I can't remember.
All right.
So unemployment, I know, basically it's been zeroed out, and basically as a request or a claim does come through, I actually just did a reserve fund for that in the amount of about $250. We did have one gentleman, but that was fortunately the extent of what we owed him for that. So, I think that's fine to continue to zero that out and just add as needed. Hopefully that stays that way and we're not spending any additional funds this year. But
Yeah.
again, that's something we really have, unfortunately, no control over.
Yeah.
The
And
health
this-
insurance goes.
Yeah, this next one is a real nice number too. Holy smokes.
I have been attending the Minuteman Neshoba health group meetings. I've probably gone to 3 or 4 now since I've been here, and the trend is not looking good. The one particular insurance group has had a significantly high number of claims, therefore that's a big reason why that increase is what it is.
Mhm.
we are starting as of fiscal 19. The group itself is going to start offering a high deductible plan. Just try to lower the premiums. It'll probably take a few years for people to get comfortable to roll it out. The group is actively trying different measures to try to lower these premiums, but.
And just for the benefit of everyone, the group is effectively a self-funded group.
It is
There's a collection of towns that you guys have come together.
Yes.
And the collective group as a whole is gonna also be offering a high deductible?
Yes, yep. Yeah, we're going
And therefore
with
that with an HSA attached to that. Okay.
And is there one member of this group that has, that's kind of driving the?
There is a steering committee.
If you could unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, there is a steering committee. I believe that consists of 4 or 5 individuals. Every member town has a representative as well as a backup. Donna's still actively involved, and I'm going as well. And it's very well organized. GBS out of Auburn, Group Benefit Solutions. They're the ones who are. I don't know, they're a representative, but they're the ones that we're working with.
With the driver of the increase in the premium, that's, what is that?
The driver, it's increased exposures. It's the claims that have been put through.
Greater use.
Yes.
Equally distributed across all the
Yes.
towns? Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or somewhat equally.
So is this is just a placeholder because you won't know the rates until later in the year?
Correct, usually end of February. We're trying to get them as soon as possible. We have a meeting the first week of February. We would love to have the new rates rolled out by that point, but more realistically, probably mid-February.
Okay.
Yeah, guys, this is one of the drawbacks to my strategy of going from biggest budget drivers down, where we're seeing the treasurer a little bit earlier than we normally would in the cycle. We would normally wait.
So what you're saying, this number may firm up as you get,
Let's hope it firms down.
yeah, that would be good.
I mean, it's gonna double in 5 years. If you're up to 520 now, that's like
Yeah.
15%
Very
compound.
well could at this rate.
Health inflation?
You're in that business, right?
I'm more in retirement, but yeah, I mean, to me, they kind of go hand in hand now, right? I mean, in order, the governmental world is different than the private sector, but I mean, I think when planning for retirement, you need to be factoring in retiree health as an individual. This world, the government world, is going about it a different way, but yeah, the numbers are huge, and it's these two categories that are sinking every municipality in this country. Yeah.
I had another just quick question. So I know you guys are part of Minutemen, the Neshoba Health Group, but the town also has an insurance advisory committee. And I was just wondering, like, how active are they? Like, do they review information you get from Minutemen? I guess where I'm going with this is if it ever came to a point where you were getting the sense that the train was coming off the tracks with the joint purchase group, would your insurance advisory committee be the one that would be making recommendations about maybe we should explore other options? Like, how would that play out?
I have never met with the insurance advisory.
I don't, where, did you get that from Donna or?
It's on the website, but that doesn't
So
necessarily
honestly,
mean-
I think it was me, Donna, and somebody else a couple
Barbara?
years ago.
Barbara
Like
Brown?
yeah, I don't think it was anything.
Okay.
I mean, that's something we could do at any time, but what I found in my previous town as well is when you go out without specific experience, because we're part of a group,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to get competitive rates. But I mean, I'm sure we could always do that if we found it.
But they are a very good group. They're
It's very
good.
well run. There's a lot of people, like I said, they're trying to introduce different options, different low-cost plans. They're pushing the health, they're pushing, all sorts of
Yeah.
incentives to try to really,
But I remember Donna sharing a story that some town or some towns were attempting to get in, and the group was like, no thanks, we're all stocked up. Okay. Yeah, you know what? The 6,500 that you, that,
I know.
this is not, it's not you.
started.
You started off so strong.
Well, these aren't final, so we still have.
Yeah, no.
Well, the OPEB debt, that did go
That
down
number's better.
4%, so, and that's based on
Yeah.
actuarial.
So that is.
Yep,
all
that's
right,
that's the arc for.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So that's an actual figure.
And eventually that'll go away, eventually.
Yeah. Okay.
And insurance, so we cut $100 on Medicare. 46,000.
And you're feeling good about those numbers?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, for the purpose, since everything is sitting on this one sheet, guys, we'll, the real big numbers are still unknown. Is everyone okay holding off on this one as well?
So,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, Kristen's absolutely right. It's really just getting the actual number, whether it's spot on, whether it's going to be less, or whether it's going to be more. It's not as if we can say no and make up our own number. She's going to share the actual number with us, and that's going to be the deal. Okay. All right.
This is probably a stupid question. There's a second page in here that workers' comp with different numbers on it.
Yeah,
Linda, right?
I think that was just a function of printing, maybe.
That's on the
That would be
letter.
Linda, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I did not. apologize.
912. 'cause
Okay, yeah,
It's
yeah.
listed here and then,
Yeah.
all right. So this is, the second sheet is what?
Linda Day
Linda
presents
Day.
that.
Oh, okay.
Bless you.
Is that a good number?
I don't know.
So, I think that's it, thank you.
And as soon as I get anything, like I said, hopefully by the second week of February, we should at
Yeah.
least have the health, and then as soon as retirement comes in.
Yeah, I'd love to know
I'll copy on that as well.
the calculation, the actual
Yeah, I'll
formulas.
give you the worksheet that we received, and you can
Yeah.
take a look at that. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Ms. Danachka, how are you?
Good. I think I have 5 minutes.
135. Okay. All right, so, last year, you asked for, some hours of increase. Those were given, and, can you share a little bit about that, and how that's, played into over this past year?
You mean, is it working out or?
Well, yeah, just in the sense that I know that, you clearly came in last year and you justified the need. I just wanted to check in and see where you were on that.
Yes. I think it's been extremely beneficial. I'm able to dive in, get, just spending the hours going through some of the grant stuff, some of the revolving accounts, just kind of digging in deep, which we've done with the auditors this year. And, I'll spend an entire day going through paperwork and just stuff that if you're just getting the basic stuff done, you don't have time to dig in. And so it's very helpful.
Okay. All right, and so let's start with purchase of services.
So that
Tell us
is,
again what that is.
that is for every other year we pay the actuarial company that does our OPEB stuff. So
Okay.
that's what that is.
That's
So every other year you get a break.
All right.
And then software support is the contract with Vadar for my system. The audit is the contract with the auditors. Office supplies are office supplies.
So, yeah,
Mine's pretty easy.
yeah, so going back to Vadar, so
Yeah,
I heard that name mentioned when Kristen was in.
right.
She's got Vadar for certain things.
So it is our accounting software. It's our tax collection software. It's our treasury software. It's our accounting system.
Okay,
So we all, it's,
So it's all
So-
integrated?
yes,
So-
we all have different modules.
all right, but she came in, gave us a number and said, here's why the number has increased, because they charged, it's a new
Right,
contract.
it's a 3-year contract.
So
So
I
her
would've thought-
module is more expensive because the tax collectors is a much more robust. I mean, she's processing tax payments and billings, and
Okay,
so mine's cheaper.
all right. But are you guys on the same contract, I guess is where I'm going.
No,
Each module is priced differently?
exactly, yeah.
But I would think collectively there would be one contract. Would that not make,
I mean, I think they could do that. It'd be the same price. I mean, it wouldn't be, it's not like we're not getting a discount because, like, so for instance, our cloud users are all together. They're all, I think they're all on my
Okay.
bill or.
that's what, if you're telling me there's not gonna be a
There'd
difference.
be no savings.
Yeah,
They could put it all on the same, on the same contract, but it wouldn't make any difference in the savings.
Are the years the same, 3-year contract
No,
starting
hers-
and ending the same?
Mine started last year, so it must have been when, you know, I'm sure we could probably get those on the same cycle, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm just wanting to make sure that if we're going to one company, right,
Yes.
and we're, yeah, I was expecting, when you said Vadar, I was like, well, why isn't the number increasing? Because I just heard Vadar was increasing,
Right.
right? So, okay,
So mine started last year, so you'll see my increase in 18, from 17 to 18.
Right.
So office supplies is the same. Meetings, I did increase $200, and just because there's so many things that I want to go to and participate in, and my budget limits me, so I kind of threw that in there, hoping you guys would say,
I am,
I want
okay,
to learn.
yeah.
Up to you guys.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Oh, that's good.
Any questions?
No.
Nope.
All right, so 2,000 is in this year, next year it'll be out, and that's every other year. All right.
Yep.
Entertain a motion to approve 135 town accountant as is.
Sorry, just before we do that, I was looking at the actuals for
Yeah.
the meetings, and with the exception of 2015, it looks like the actuals have always been even higher than 1,400. So I'm just wondering, like,
That's true.
I don't know.
Well, you must be able to cover it from somewhere.
Yeah, I pillage
Oh, right,
from the
you can.
other accounts.
All
But
right.
if you want to give me more,
Yeah.
You wouldn't turn it down.
I would turn it
I'm asking
back.
because your 6-month run rate is 98%, but if you can,
Yeah, like last year
somewhere
I
else.
didn't go to the Cape because I didn't have enough money.
okay.
That's so sad. I didn't go to the Cape because I didn't have money.
That sounds
Yeah.
sad.
I know, doesn't it? No, but it's fine.
Are we obligated to do the OPEB actuarial
Yes.
calculations every other year? Couldn't do it every 3 years.
No, it's actually been reduced with the new GASB. It was every 3 and now it's every 2.
I mean,
Just like Leo
we're
Getz
digging out of
says.
such a deep hole, I don't know that it matters.
You
whether
have to
we do it
drive.
every other year.
$1,000 a year. It's not bad. I don't know.
Like 2,000 every 3
Out of our
years.
pocket into somebody else's.
Yeah.
It's-
It's, yeah,
Yeah,
gotta keep the machine going,
they
Ted.
have lobbyists, we don't. Okay.
Any other questions on town accountant? Yeah, Nanachka, I would ask that you continue to pillage, but if it is,
See when I
But-
come back
but-
next year.
but yes, please, if you wouldn't mind keeping track in that way. Because as you know, it's always good to get more to the real
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
absolutely.
everything. So I'll entertain a motion to approve town accountant 135 as is.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Come on out. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing well? All right, so Conservation Commission 171.
I'd like to apologize to you folks because I'm supposed to be the liaison for your group. And I did have a couple of questions, but you may be able to answer them. One was, there are no actuals for fiscal year 17, at least not on the sheet that I have. And I was wondering about that, and also, well, no, that's really the only, and what happened to salaries? I think you could explain that, and I assume it's because you have a new person here, it's a full year and so forth. But we don't have any actuals for last year. Do you have that information now?
I can go grab it. I don't know if Ninochka just ran out to grab it, but if you want me to go upstairs and get it.
The notch is that? Ah,
Thank you.
Ah, okay.
On
good.
her quirky printer.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, one thing I can say about the wages for the actuals, because Ninochka and I went over it earlier today, that we actually expended over because I was working on updates for the open space and recreation plan along with other projects. So that did end up going over, but we took it from one of the budget line items. Ninochka transferred it internally. So that's why you saw an increase for FY 18 and then FY 19 as well. Because as of, except for I believe 2 months ago, I've been working 35 hours a week, if not over that, because obviously there's enough to do. So we're just requesting that I'm able to continue that work
Right, and the
days.
last time, when I was on the committee, we had a member who voluntarily did the open space plan by himself. There was no charge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of work for sure. That was Scott.
Scott, oh gosh.
I think his last name. But he did all the GIS maps
Yes,
as
he
well.
did. Yeah. Thank you.
all right. So that,
Thank you.
I don't know what happened there.
all right. So the wages line that we're looking at here, is that reflecting the request to go from 32 to 35?
Correct.
Okay. And so the situation is you're presently at 32 and on average you're doing in the neighborhood of 34, 35. All right. And so I know, we've gone down, I talked to Dawn a little bit about this. On advisory, this is very helpful. I don't know if Dawn and the treasurer and the accountant have officially weighed in and said yay or nay.
I talked to Don first
Yeah.
before we were proposing it to let him to get his thoughts.
Yeah.
And all indications were from him, and I'd asked him too that he did support it. Again, a lot of it came out of, we knew we were using Rebecca more than 32 hours a week consistently. It wasn't like, oh, a week here or a week there.
Yeah.
She's got, I don't know, you get out of the last selectmen's meeting because it was canceled, but
Yeah.
she's here for a meeting, it seems like at least a night every week. Basically, our meetings can run long. We keep her, she doesn't complain. We figured it was about time we reflected what we're actually spending for her hours. And the time that she's actually going to be here and is here. We've also actually taken on with the town common we've increased the amount of land that we're trying to manage now. And with a piece like the town common, some of our land, you know, you check in every once in a while, you're fine. You want to let it naturalize. The town common requires a little bit more,
Yeah.
you know, effort in general to be there and to make sure we keep on top of everything.
And
Okay.
I'm assuming you're working with DPW in terms of their maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what Brian's specifically speaking on is the knotweed, so basically invasive species right
Yeah.
along Great Brook there.
Yeah.
So your typical methods that you would use in another town of some sort of chemical treatment, they don't obviously want to use here, so they're trying different methods in other towns, but there's really no solve-all answer for everything.
Okay.
So what do we do? Just basically eradicate it manually? I mean, pull it up or cut it or?
Yeah, there are different ways. You can cut it, cover it. What they're doing in Stowe, I believe, is they're cutting it and then injecting into each
Just for knotweed?
stem. Yeah, chemical
That
treatment.
works. I hate to tell you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand
yeah,
that.
Well, they had that going for 3 years. I mean,
Yeah.
it still comes back. They still are doing the injections. They're
That's
finding it's
nothing
working,
else.
but it's not a,
Yeah, it takes a
it's
few
not a
years,
one
but
time,
yeah.
yeah, it just keeps coming back.
And the fact that
Anything
the
about
neighborhood
garlic mustard? Is that?
So that's actually, I believe I mentioned it in the request for the wages, but we received some funding from the SISMO organization to kick off our invasive species management program on the conservation properties. That's manual hand pulling of garlic mustard, water chestnut, multiflora rose, and a few other species that we've seen either all over town or on conservation
Right.
properties, but we want to use the conservation property as sort of a showcase of, okay, this is, for instance, we're starting on Fifeshire, it's a more manageable property, trying to do as much as we can there, and then using that to hopefully involve residents and get them to be doing the same on their property.
I had a question about that grant. Do you know what the value of it was and for which fiscal year it is?
Of what? I'm sorry.
The
grant.
grant that you just mentioned, the SISMA grant.
The grant, so it's for the fiscal year we're currently in, and it's, I believe, just under $600, and so that basically just makes it up for the equipment.
Okay.
They typically have it every year when funds are available, because I forget exactly what organization they get it from, but it's awarded to the SISMA, which is a non-profit, and then we applied to SISMA to get those funds. And there are other projects as well that they're awarded to.
Okay. Because just for my own sake, when you're going through this budget, if you're able to flag any other grants that you know of that have come in and, like, I'm thinking about the Council on Aging budget where we see an expense, but there's also a grant on the other side that doesn't show up on here, but it's helpful to be reminded of that.
Okay.
If you can tell us that, like, we get grants for some of these things, or you successfully applied for grants for some of these things, just remind us of that as you go through the lines.
Okay.
Only if it comes out of the expenditure budget, right? I mean, because some grants, it's all in the same account, like you wouldn't even see it here, right? Like where
It
Council on
basically makes
Aging,
its
like
own
we
line,
pay the
yeah.
MART drivers out of the expenditure account and we get revenue, so you
Right.
don't see the offset, but grant accounts typically, they all run in the same account. So the money for that, like, so when we get that SISMA money, that'll go into a grant account and then it'll get paid.
So you won't see it in the operating budget.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, so it has no offsetting effect on this
Exactly.
budget? Yeah, exactly, so only ones that have an offsetting effect.
Okay.
All right. Can you just refresh our memory on purchase of services on what you guys use those dollars for?
So that, this past fiscal year, we had used it to hire the GIS consultant.
That's
Oh,
right.
wow.
I'm sorry, you got it right here. I apologize.
That's okay.
Yes.
Um,
Education, outreach for public, litigation, things of that nature.
Right.
Okay.
So I had another question about that.
Yeah.
So it looked like we appropriated $14,500 for that last year, but that none of it has been spent so far. So is that unless I'm just not reading our run rate correctly, does that mean that we actually won't spend the money in FY18? And so you're renewing the request for FY19?
No. If I'm thinking of your question correctly, maybe I'm misinterpreting it.
Because that
So-
original 14.5 was something Carol put in
Right.
for, is it for maps or for updating
For the open,
space?
for hiring a consultant for the open space and
Right.
recreation plan, not just so it was, the open space and recreation plan itself, so writing it, we actually ended up doing the informal group, and then myself to type it all up, organize, format it, and then for the GIS consultant as well.
You might be thinking FY16 where it was not spent. And this year, if I'm looking at the actuals for this year, we've got 3/4 of it spent, or 2/3. Right? A little over, 10,987.
Well, that was actual of 2017.
No, that was actual 20. So what
Oh,
I'm
I'm
looking
sorry,
at is
we're
our expenditure ledger for the first 6 months of fiscal 18, we have 14,500 allocated, none of it spent, and actually an ending balance of 15,500 because $1,000 was added. So at least from the accounting perspective, it looks like none of the 14,500 that was appropriated at the May town meeting has been spent
As of yet.
since July.
Yep.
So, yeah, maybe my question is, when does it get spent?
Okay, so I can say that there will be some spent during the invasive species management program, because there's a map aspect of that as well, where we're gonna be trying to create GIS maps and then have a data set or a geodatabase specific to where the invasives are throughout town. And along with that, we're working with Mass Audubon to sort of solidify that, because there's a statewide app that you can use, but the confirmation of those and where the located specimen are, it's on a longer timeline than what our project's gonna call for this year anyways.
Mhm.
So we'll hire them to sort of get our own in-house database, which again should be similar to the expenditures of what were done for the open space and recreation plan.
And is that, but that is different than the land maintenance, right? It's just identifying
Mapping
the,
the invasive species.
Yes.
all right.
Right.
And are you guys using that company that has the drones to identify?
No.
No, there was an individual at a selectmen's meeting, that
Oh,
attended a selectmen's meeting
Yeah.
last year, and I believe has a shop in town. And the way he explained, it was fascinating, that literally can hover over a piece of property and identify, yeah. I would think that, I'm not telling you how to do your job.
No, I
It
mean,
seems as though that would be
Yeah.
a phenomenally great way to identify what you guys are trying to do.
yeah. No, that is, I mean, like I said, we're looking at different ways. We're trying to get the community involved, so that's where that app comes into play. But I'll certainly revisit that as well.
Yeah, I felt as though he has a shop in town.
I thought he said it was at the Paragon building.
He's in, I
could
think
be
he's at
incorrect.
Bolton Office Park.
Oh,
They-
Office
all right.
Park, there you go. Al had.
Yeah, well,
mentioned
that was cool.
Yeah, so he has permission to monitor, to use them over
Town.
town land.
Oh, nice.
And I don't know if he's looking for diseased plants, that's like what they're working on,
Oh, that's right. You're right, Jonathan. He did mention diseased.
like bug infestation or drought, but I think it could work. And I think he said he'd be interested in sharing that.
Okay. Yeah, I'd spoken with Al, I think in the early fall, but he was just sort of providing some brief, basic information of this is what's there type of thing. And I didn't look too much deeper into it, to be honest, but it is something that
Might be
sounds
worth
like,
conversation.
yeah, it may be beneficial to look into.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit here. So, purchase of services, you guys, you haven't, to date, haven't spent any, but the last 6 months, you're pretty confident you're gonna use that 14.5.
Yeah, we're gonna have a few, like I said, especially
Yeah.
with this project coming
Okay.
up.
And share a little bit about the desire for the increase in land maintenance from 6 to 10.
So for the land maintenance, we did apply to another grant that we didn't end up receiving, specific to creating more grassland habitat, actually at Bower Spring, which includes the removal, I think, 4 or 5 trees, 2 or 3 of which are dead because they've been choked out by invasives. And then a few others that are just sort of standalone, but not, I guess, the main feature trees, if that makes sense. And then with that, some associated plantings, along with, I know I have listed there what we've seen in the past for the mowing that we do annually. And then, again, invasive management, which on any of our conservation properties, we have that issue, but Bower Springs, we maintain a little bit more, same thing as Butternut. So that's doing more edge work, and that's with the same company, unless the commission chooses to change it, but they've been pretty successful maintaining the properties.
So invasives are also in the land maintenance
Yes,
as well as.
Yeah, so in the land maintenance, it's more specific to, we've in the past hired Jim Henderson Stryker. He's done the mowing on Butternut, Bower Springs, and a few of our other properties that are specific, they need the mowing done. And then with that, the edge work, which is, a lot of it is invasive, so you have the multi-floor rows, and he has the machinery to do it easily, and then it's an easier upkeep for us if we're going in hand pulling, hand snips.
How is the standard determined for what level of invasive, what control of invasive species we need? In other words, is it federal mandate? You've got to reduce invasive species or something? Is it self-defined? What's the standard?
I would say it's both. It's dependent on how bad or how extensive the outbreak is, because a lot of invasives, like I was just saying about the trees, they can choke out other species. Along with the state doesn't like you transporting invasives, but they do want you to allow for natives to grow and prosper there. It goes back to wildlife and food that's available or habitat that different native species provide that invasives may not. So it breaks down at different levels. It's kind of a complex.
Do we ever reach the finish line? Is there an end in sight, or is you just...
No, it's just maintaining what you have, unfortunately.
It's mowing your lawn, yeah.
But the good thing is, at least from my perspective, and doing some research with it, once you sort of do the main edge work or mowing, then it becomes a little bit more manageable each year. But again, that's over a lengthy period of time. It's like...
Is there an economic return, or is it just aesthetics? I mean, a farmer wants to get rid of Johnson grass and other bindweed and blah, blah, blah. But, and he has economic reasons for that.
Sure. Well, I would say aesthetic as far as our conservation properties go, but on the other hand, we have a lot of waterways and wetlands throughout town, as everyone knows. And I'll use the knotweed as an example again. That's very easy to, I guess, travel throughout town.
It just takes over.
Yeah, it takes over and it chokes out
more than
other
purple loose
people's.
strife.
Yes, and it can affect agriculture depending on if you have channels running through your property or not. And as we've seen, it's literally right along Great Brook throughout town. And if you have one property not maintaining it, no, not pun intended, but if it affects the entirety of that waterway. And then it can go to other towns. For instance, the Suwasco watershed, which is the Sudbury, Concord, and Assabet, they are specifically looking for aquatic and terrestrial invasive species, but aquatic's a priority because it can cross town borders very easily, and the next town has an issue. So I guess that's sort of a long answer to your question.
No, that's fine. Educational.
Yeah.
I have another question. I'm struggling to understand. It looks like invasive species management appears in 3 different variations, and I'm trying to understand the difference.
Sure.
There's a piece of it in purchase of service, which you kind of described,
Yep,
and then there's a piece of it in land maintenance,
yep.
but then it looks like all of the land capital improvement line is also devoted to invasive species management annual projects. So I'm trying to understand, is there a difference between the way you think about those 3 things?
So, I guess I would have to compare it to scale. So, for instance, the aquatic invasives that I just explained, if you need to explain it, I'll explain it again. That's on, in my thought process anyways, that's more of a land capital improvement, where the land maintenance, like I said, is you're hiring another party who already maintains the properties that we have and having them come in and do it. Where land capital improvements may actually require a little bit more research behind it. So whether we hire someone, or if I myself do it, or if we have a group of the community doing it.
Okay.
That's where that comes into play as well.
And that money for land capital improvements, that money also tends to get spent the last 6 months of the fiscal year? Thank you.
Yeah, and I remember the mowing, because we've had this question thrown at you guys over several years. The mowing component on the land maintenance is also another one where you're trying to attack it at its peak and
Yep.
Yeah.
cut the head off. All right. Other questions? The only, before we move off of the, all right, yeah, let's tackle the budget first. So if there are no other questions, regarding the wages, the way I'd like to treat this is I don't have a problem approving this number, but it's with the assumption that you already have, or you will get official approval from Dawn and Donna Madden as, town administrator and chief human resource officer.
Yeah.
In my opinion, like.
I have spoken with Don as well, and he said he supports it.
Yeah.
Actually, he mentioned that he was going to be at the meeting, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He failed to show.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
there's a couple departments that are asking for hour increases, and this committee got mired down into the weeds. No pun intended. A couple years ago with library, and I'm just not interested in going down that corridor again. So, like I said, assuming they ultimately sign off on it, I'm okay with it, or whatever they sign off on.
Does this trigger any other costs?
No, I don't think so. She's already passed.
Already benefited.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It would just be the dollar figure.
Yeah.
Brian, can I ask, did the Conservation Commission vote on this issue of the hours increase?
It was discussed. I don't know that we had an official vote. Actually, I should say I know we didn't have an official vote. We had a discussion. We've turned over a lot of members this year. We have a number of new members now, but everybody was basically in agreement.
Okay.
It was even talked about when we had this search for Rebecca's position. Because as we revised and wrote, because Carol had been here for 17 years, so as we wrote out the job description, we realized, who is going to do this in 32 hours? This is going to have to increase. And we kind of knew it back then. So it's something we had anticipated for years, and this year it really, and in talking with Don too, because I was trying to find what the right mix of hours was too, and he said, it's a small step for now, so it's not a big increase too, and he said that's what we're finding is about 35 hours a week is normally where Rebecca's here, whether she likes it or not.
I'm not complaining.
Oh, whether she
Yeah.
That sounds so good.
Minashka?
The 14,500, could you decrease that at all to help make up for Rebecca's salary? I don't know. It just felt like it was a one-time thing put in by Carol, and then it's never gone away.
Sure.
So I don't know how you feel about that. I don't know. It's just an idea, just to reduce the budget impact a little bit. because we've never spent it yet, like all the way up to the 14.5.
Right. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I was trying to think, what do we have? What do we have coming in here this year, you know, that we'd be worried that would be pushing up against
Like,
it?
could you split the difference and take $2,000 away, or?
Because I mean, it's a somewhat tricky line because it's
Right.
going to change year by year depending on what the services are that we need, and that can jump.
Yeah.
Well,
Especially
you know,
this
some
year
years
we
they
had
get big, right?
litigation fees that we would have had in the past, that came out of as well.
Then you could come back for something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if the land maintenance budget is going up 4,000,
Yeah.
through the accounting flexibility, Nanachka, would they be able, let's say they actually needed to spend more than 12,500 on purchase of service and they had a little cushion in land maintenance, could they use that?
Yes.
Do that?
Yeah, so it's all because of that municipal modernization, as long as you stay within your budget.
Yeah.
That's right, it's not mine.
So do you?
I would not be putting, like, unless you have a fear of something major coming in.
If this is something unforeseen, unexpected, you could go to
Yes.
advisory.
Yeah, that's true as well.
So $2,000, knock it down to 12,500.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with that.
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions on 171, guys? All right. So is everyone okay with the way I positioned the wages? That
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
advisory.
Yeah, that it's ultimately, the answer comes
We're
from
not-
Dawn
We
and
don't
Dawn.
authorize it, we
Yeah.
don't approve it.
Okay. So with the stipulation of going from 14.5 down to 12.5 on purchase of services, entertain a motion to approve 171 as is.
So moved.
So,
Okay.
second, sorry.
All right.
Did you say as is or with the change?
With that change.
With
Yeah,
that
with that
change, so it'll be
change.
86,832 total, right?
I like to hear
Yes.
that.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Two final things before you guys go. One is in 2015, there was an article that was approved for Fifeshire Dam repair for the amount of $36,000.
Yes.
And that has not been spent. I have not mentioned this to you, but
Okay.
I know I've mentioned it to you, and I gave you a pass because you said we don't have a conservation director. Is there a chance that that money is going to get spent this year? Because in the absence of that, the town said yes to 36,000 4 years ago. And I know the town could very much use that $36,000. So if you guys are telling me that you got a game plan in play for this next year, fine. Otherwise, I would really appreciate if you could seriously entertain turning that back in.
Should they have some conversation with DPW on that as well?
They could have a conversation,
And it has to be for what the article was written. You can't use it.
Right.
But my point is,
So
who does the work? Do they
it's-
separately contract?
no, the ultimate, the ultimate decision is at the department head.
So I actually, to answer that question, this past fall before snow fell, we were looking into some repairs associated with that. I don't know the full cost, if it's gonna be the 36,000 or if it's gonna be less than that. But, so I'm not sure what the exact answer is as of yet.
Yeah.
But I have been looking into it and I can sort of do it a little bit more
Yeah.
quickly.
That'd be,
Yeah.
Nanoshka, I am failing to remember, did we ultimately vote on policy? Just, no.
But we're entertaining a 3-year window. We wanted to go a year without any formal votes to see, but within a year, basically either the project is stale, the costs are stale. If it's really that important, then we should go back to town meeting if something
Yeah.
is that old. I think.
Yeah. So
Was
to
the thought process.
to that point, and knowing that you're coming in and still getting the ground running here, yes, if you could really move this up on the priority list, go out and get some legit RFPs and get a timeline in place, that would be very appreciative.
Or put out an RFP so you get something.
Right.
Yeah.
The final thing I would ask is, we are asking every department head to look into the future on a 5-year. And I know I've mentioned this to you guys before, and you are, I will absolutely admit, you are in a different camp, because it's not as if you're like, oh, I need a new, police cruiser, right? I know when this thing is gonna go down the tubes. Some landowner comes to you and says, we would like to turn this over, or, have the town entertain buying this. As you guys develop your maps and you have relationships with people in town, I would ask that you start to create a pipeline of possibilities that might come down the pipe. And if you could identify that and build that into, I would love to have a capital plan from you.
Okay.
Not that I want to buy more land.
No.
I just want to be more aware of what might we all face.
Okay.
Is that possible?
Conceptually, yes.
Yeah.
Just like you mentioned, it's a little bit more difficult for the exact reasons you just said, to be able to do that, because it's not,
It's a target of opportunity.
yeah.
Yeah.
It sort of comes up, unless we estimate one landowner per year with this amount of acreage.
Yeah.
They've come to us in the past, so this is what we're looking at. But then you look at that coming year and then nothing comes up. I don't know, for Bolton, it seems that every year there's a little something in terms of land or conservation restrictions or APRs.
Yeah, or even
Yeah.
just
But-
the usual suspects, right?
Yeah.
And just going to them and saying, hey.
This is something we've actually talked about in the past, and we've argued about in the past. is
Yeah.
that we have the conservation fund.
Yeah.
It's $30,000 sitting there, and the whole purpose of it was just that. You don't know when land's gonna become available, and it was so the town could budget, all right, we're gonna put so much a year in, and when opportunities arise, we'll have that war chest there, and we won't have to come for it all at once. And we can look at how much we've actually spent on acquiring land in, like, let's say the last 10 years. We can look at a period of time and figure out how much a year that would have been. But if you're looking at like a $250,000 purchase,
Yeah.
that's, do we want to add $25,000 a year? No, but do we want to maybe add $5,000 a year so that, you have that war chest ready? This predates a lot of us coming Conservation Commission, so I had to look it up originally, and that was, a lot of the reasons why they wanted it is they thought the town should show the people that they were serious, that we're going to put aside money for conservation, that we have it, and that we're at the ready.
I think the town has demonstrated the seriousness.
Sure.
Seriousness in conservation.
Absolutely. But when it comes to that, that was the whole purpose of this line. Is they said, rather than coming out and saying, "Oh my God, all of a sudden this year we need an extra 200,000," it was, let's put away 5,000 a year, and then all of a sudden, we need an extra 50,000. It's a different story.
Yeah.
And I know you don't like it, but there's lots of people in town that do like purchasing conservation land. I love it. We just got 30 acres. Makes me happy. I hate that my taxes go up. That kills me. I love what you guys do, but I wouldn't assume that everybody wants us to stop buying land or stop taking care of land. Or
Exactly.
I think there's people that would get behind, like, yeah, we should be putting away so much every year. So when we have an opportunity and it comes to us, it's not a panic. Like, we have that war chest waiting there.
Yeah.
So just a thought, but I appreciate what you're saying. That's all I could really think is if we looked at how much we spent on land over an X amount of time, we could figure out like a percent, per year, what it costs. But it's so hit or miss when we saw like Camp Virginia was so wow, that just comes up out of the bluish.
Yeah.
Not completely, but we have nothing sitting there waiting for that.
Yeah. No, exactly. So even like, let's take the Boy Scout camp for example, right?
Yeah.
So, like, to me, there was a lot of compelling comments made, to get out in front of that. So I guess I'm even asking you guys that, like, talking to these various landowners, right? Like, where are you? I know I'm not going to hold you to it.
No.
Are you entertaining? Like, is this part of your estate plan? Like, just even, attempting to get a little more data from these landowners so that
Yeah.
you guys are able to have a better understanding and then translate that back to us as well. It would just be very helpful.
Yeah. Oh, and it's a great
But
exercise too.
I know
It
you
is.
guys are, it is not, you're not in the same camp as a fire department that was in here last week. I recognize that. But I think it would benefit all of us. And
Yeah.
I would absolutely love to get to the point where we could consistently put money aside
Yeah.
for that. And it, to me, it really is a function of assuming we can get a better handle on everything that's coming down the pipe.
Yeah.
Or even
Yeah.
things that you would like to have would be the other pieces, just to look at the map and say, you
Yeah.
know, if this ever became available,
Yeah,
these
that's-
would augment that and create whatever. So
Exact-
just being
Yeah,
opportunistic is
Yeah.
always what you
And
want
And
to
that,
do.
that's a lot of that open space and
Yeah.
rec plan,
I don't believe
but
anything should be brought down.
when it comes up, because there's so many of the key places that we're like, "Oh, this would be key."
Because it's tax money that
No, I know, I knew
some
that,
people knew
so,
would maybe not approve the budget because of that. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's something you have to think about.
Yeah, no, I guess what I'm getting across is the more information we all have, the better we'll
Well, I like
all,
that.
all be
Definitely.
served.
Definitely.
Yeah.
There's also a thing called gifting.
yes.
Right.
That was the other one we
Just
did.
happened
Yes,
recently,
yeah.
Honor
Which is
those
not always
who
good.
choose.
No, so that
Yeah, correct, yes, yes,
but we
correct.
doubled, that $100 in the budget is for that fund, right?
Correct.
The what?
Yeah,
$100.
yeah. It's basically keeping
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you guys about donor advised funds.
I do not ever want to talk about donor advisors.
But yeah, that's certainly something we can do. I don't know how close to an exact number we'll get, but certainly gathering more information.
Yeah, I don't expect you to, you're right, you can't have an exact number.
Yeah.
But even if you were able to come in and say, you know what, with a fairly high degree of probability, we know there's, X amount of acres, or there's, 10 landowners
Yeah.
that have historically in the past given, have indicated to us that they might decide to give, and it could be in the neighborhood of this amount of acres.
Yeah.
Just that, not even having a
Yeah.
price tag tied to it
Okay.
could be helpful.
No, it's a good exercise for us too.
All right. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Parks and Recreation. I apologize for bringing you guys in late. Please come on down.
Hello, how you doing? Neighbors, never see.
So, Parks and Rec, guys, this is 6:30 and 6:50.
This is the same place as debt service, which is what you
All right, so 6:30, you guys, does everyone have it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
You made no changes from last year. For your
well, that's very much appreciated.
You're welcome.
The question is, are you gonna hold to it right here? Or are you gonna be like the ambulance person who says, you told me to come in with a level funded budget, so I did, but here's what I have to tell you now. So,
I don't think we've ever done that in the past.
I'm just seeing where you are, that's all.
We actually do a really good job fundraising for a lot of the things that we do. Our Halloween event is something that keeps growing exponentially every single year. This year, we had over 1,000 people attend, which I think was 300 more.
Anytime it's less than 5,000, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
More than
Better than voter.
But we do a lot with donations, monetary, both with equipment and things, candy, people who donate candy. So we try to do a lot of things to offset what the cost is, because
Okay.
we try to keep that low.
so it's not a recurring tax issue. Easter was about $700. Again, it's another event that keeps growing, but we do the same thing. We get a lot of donations to try to offset the cost. We do have a lot of projects. We talked last year about Pond Park is a project that we'd love to renovate that property. Horse Ring is another one that we want to turn into a proper athletic field, specifically for lacrosse. The cost of those were very expensive. We had initially put together an article for the warrant, and the advisory had guided us against it just because the town couldn't afford it, so we didn't go forward with that.
Yeah.
You had talked to us last year about maybe the advisory could help us on some capital planning to get those projects moving forward in a more financially responsible way. So we might look to you to help us with that going forward.
Yeah, you guys had the benefit of hearing my comments to conservation. Yeah, we're talking with all department heads, just trying to build out a 5-year plan to have greater insight to the future.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean it's a yes. It's just, what is it that you feel you need, the town needs, whatever it is, and then collectively, capital planning, and then us, and then the selectmen have a view of it, and then it ultimately moves forward to
Right. That's
town meeting. Right?
Basically, let's operate like a business, right? So we're gonna put together a plan and say, you know what, Horse Ring is gonna cost $10K to renovate. Does the town want it, or does the town not want it? Do you want that more than a fire truck, right? So there's all the things to put in front of them.
Yeah.
And that's how I think we have to do it. We also have.
Is that, I'm sorry to cut you off, but is that something that is critical right now in next year, 2020? Or is it something you're like, you know what, we can suck it up and go another year, so it's more like 2021? And oh, by the way, what about 2022? Here's what we need to be looking at on that.
You know, what we don't see is, and I don't remember over the past years, what you've done and how much money the town has given you to do the improvements or to add valuable parkland, playland, whatever.
And I think
and that would be helpful, because you will get passed over if we need a fire truck.
Right.
And I mean, that's unfortunately, where you sit all the time.
And I think,
Always
Connie,
nice.
you honestly, like, you bring up a really good point.
It's not fair, though, in a sense, because I had kids when I moved here, and I thought it was horrible, the little bit of space that we had and what we were given, and we were paying all these taxes.
Right, we have great space. It's just that the
Well,
fields
it
are
was
crap.
Well, that's exactly what I
And they
mean. We have the
remain crappy.
space, but it's just.
But it costs money. You need a sprinkler
Yeah.
system, you need sod, you need people to be off it for a year while it's growing,
Well,
and we
remember
have all of those
building
estimates.
The baseball
That's right.
field.
And
It's not
something.
physically going out there with volunteers.
And I think
For
we've always
ourselves.
tried to be, how can we do it for the least amount of money? And we would do a lot of volunteer days and things like that. And, the town has changed a lot with the volunteerism we've seen in just the time we've been on Parks and Rec. And, how do we move those projects forward now? And, we've seen other groups come in and they've been able to get the money. It's like, okay, so we're the Dudley Do-Rights and we're getting, our properties aren't being addressed the same as some of the others. So, I think for us to put together a proper plan and say, Pond Park would cost X amount, and here's the schedule of activities that need to be done for it to be completed. Does the town want a big skating area? And maybe they don't, maybe they do. But here's how much it would cost you, not only for the preparation of it, but also the ongoing maintenance and operation
In
of
this
it.
5-year plan, we can see also how many times you were turned down. I mean, for the same thing.
Right.
Going
Yeah.
forward.
And usability, right? So taking, stock of how many people are going out there skating. There's a lot of people who have backyard skating rinks now. I have one. Are people going there? How often are people going to Little Pond Swim with the number of pools that are in town? And like you were saying to conservation, like, what's your pipeline? And I think we have a similar pipeline of just what is the need and the usability of the properties that we currently have. During sports season, our fields are busting out. Anyone who has a kid who's in sports knows it. But come summer, it's like the town without children. I mean, you go by Memorial Field and there's nobody there. Because, we're in a town with people have large properties. Everybody has a rainbow, playground, jungle gym in their backyard. So those are some things that we're really taking into account. Something we've talked about is creating kind of like, here's a list of programs, activities, and fields that we've been working on. Would anyone like to help us spearhead to kind of collect those data points to make, intelligent decisions about what we're going to do going forward? So, long answer to your, like, are we going to come back and say, do we need more money? We hope not. We try to look at the things that we have. We've been doing it for quite some time.
Yeah.
Being able to do a lot of stuff with volunteer work. The Halloween parade is probably our biggest expense, which seems crazy. Our local groups, they put a lot of time, the Bolton Youth Baseball, soccer, they invest a lot of money into our fields too, so.
Okay.
The only other thing, I don't know if you had a chance to review the email I had sent earlier today, was something that we've been talking a lot about. And I think in light of, the Town Common project, the Camp Virginia project, the growing need for activities and things in town to be managed in a really more formal way. We've been talking a lot about, in our past Parks and Rec meetings, about establishing either a full-time or part-time role, similar to the other commissions have in town. I think, in the short run, or looking at it short term, it's like, oh, it's just another expense, but if there was somebody in town hall who was responsible for Parks and Rec and could look at different properties that were for sale, and you collaborate with Conservation Commission and the Department of Public Works, I think it would help a lot with some of the things that we've struggled with as a town. There's going to be way more open space is going to come up in the near future. I don't think anyone could deny that. And having somebody who's experienced in it, and who's dedicated to it, not somebody who's volunteer, to see it through and do proper studies and do proper usability surveys and get a full consensus of the town. I think in the long run will pay dividends, as the town matures and goes forward. And then just the activities and the desire for all of that. It's growing. People want more. They like what we've done. They want to see more of that. All of us, work too, as you guys do, so it's a volunteer thing, and supporting that to the point of what the town wants. And again, it's something maybe you put forward to the town. Like, do you want more programs? Do you want more things? Because if you do, it really would demand a part-time or full-time person for the town. I shared with you the survey that Clinton had done, so they had done a full HR survey back in April. Full salary survey. They looked at a bunch of towns. I don't know how equivalent they are to Bolton. I tried to do my own meshed up version of that. I'm not the expert on that, full disclosure. But some of the towns did look comparable in some ways. So we looked at the median of what those towns were, whether that's the right salary or not. We know what the needs are for that role. If you could help us with what the salary or what we could even afford as a town. We do think it's something that we're growing into a place where we would need someone like that.
Yeah, and I know, I spoke with Don, and I know you've had some conversations with him, and this is kind of it was like, well, do we bring it forward at town meeting? And so I know this all came together very quick for us. And we did get a chance to look at it, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't had a real opportunity to let it sink in and think more about it. I think, as I said to Conservation, and early on, they were asking for an increase from 32 to 35 hours, an extra 3 hours. And we've gone round and round, and ultimately, we didn't even weigh in, because I'm not going to do that. It's ultimately, we just advise. I'm going to let Dawn Lowe and the selectmen, if need be, Donna Madden, the human resource officer, make the call. To me, you make a compelling case. I don't necessarily know if it's right to 40, given we've got conservation that's been here at 32 and is asking to go to 35. But I can only imagine the degree of time that you guys all put in terms of volunteering. And I can absolutely sympathize, because I know if the town of Bolton had a full-on, chief financial officer, that person could do a hell of a lot more than the 6 of us do over the course of 4 months.
Yeah. Because it's tough, I think, you're all in similar situations. It's what you want to do and what you can do. And I think when Joyce and I first joined, we were in different situations, and we were able to dedicate a lot more time and kind of grow the commission into something, really meaningful. And in our time, we've seen people join, because they want to push something through, and we want to stop that. We've always had, like we were saying in our meeting prior, kind of a global view. There's seniors in town, there are people with children, there's a whole spectrum, and being able to service all of them with programs and events and things that everybody can enjoy. And I think that would be it would be helpful to have somebody solid and consistent to help maintain that. Because I think otherwise, we have a small budget, clearly, but you have people come in and they have a single focus and they get it pushed through and then they're off. And it's a really good commission for community and for togetherness in the town, and just having that, be more consistent and have someone maintain that is a positive thing. And the full time, that's the big ask. 19 hours I think is a good start. Somebody to come in and start formalizing it and helping in that way. That would be a really welcome addition too. So we didn't know the proper avenue. We thought we had to do a warrant, an article, and Don, talking to Don, he was like, no, this is the best approach here.
Yeah, no, I think this is a good start. I think we all need to spend a little more time, and then I'm sure we'll have a whole mess of answers that similar to, the fire department is in a similar boat. They're facing some shortage of daytime coverage. So they came in with an ask. We looked at the number, kind of choked. We had a whole mess of questions, and the fire department is working on answering those, and so it's an ongoing conversation, and so I think this is probably the same thing. And so we may have you back, but at the very least we're going to be communicating more as we finish up this budget to kind of give you guys some more direction on
And we want that because, clearly the role you're in and trying to figure out, you have this small amount of money and how to delegate it out to all the groups who want all these things, right? And you know more than we do on how that fits into the bigger picture. So yeah, we would welcome the chance to come back and talk about it in depth, and maybe it's not something for this year, but maybe it's something for next year. How we can plan, what would be the right salary approach to it. Maybe we have to scale back on the requirements that we have in our job, description. All of those things, we're more than welcome to your guidance on that.
Right, but we do have a lot of properties and all of them need maintenance, and we just, between the 4 of us and working, we just feel like if there's a full-time person there on grants that can take some of that. So even Pond Park, it's a historical park. There's a beautiful rock wall. We get up there with our clippers. There's got to be a better way. So if there was someone to maintain and understand with the properties that we had, maybe persons wouldn't have fallen to the condition that it's in.
And prioritize, right? And say like, okay, so
what are
the
people going
town
to use the most? Would people use Persons Park if it was fixed up? Or should it be a pavilion? And when we tried it a couple of years ago, but...
Let me make sure I understand, because the Pond Park,
that's right here.
A piece of property owned by the town of Bolton. So it's my expectation that there's certain work being done on that by the DPW. Are you telling me that is not the case?
They mow.
They mow.
Okay.
And they install the sluice gate for the skating.
Okay, all right.
That's it.
Just checking, because the other town common got a healthy mow budget. And
Right.
So I'm I'm making
And
sure.
same with like Person's Park. They mow there,
Mhm.
I think, a couple times.
Yeah.
And they
But,
maintain
well,
the
you're-
driveway, but.
Well,
But what you're saying is, on each given property, you guys have a vision of what you'd like to do, and there's a gap. You can't personally do it. You haven't transferred that knowledge, and even if you did pass it on to DPW, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do it, because it just jacks up their budget.
But it's worth the conversation. I mean, we've
No, absolutely.
we've had a legacy of, certain people did certain things, and I think with the transition to DPW, there may be some opportunity to.
And we've always had
Have
a
a
really
review of
good
that,
working
you know?
relationship with the DPW.
Yeah.
And with Leslie Case, I mean, she's been amazingly helpful, and so is the rest of the team. And we actually, Joyce and I did a site walk with Leslie and Rebecca of all the properties down this end of town, Pond Park, Sheepfield, Horse Ring, and Memorial, to talk about what we could help with and what the DPW could do.
And that's the right start of the conversation, because you've
Yeah.
got new players.
Yeah, Brian, it goes, Brian and I were having a conversation earlier before this budget started about selectmen advisory, planning board, conservation, like just making sure. The bottom line is making sure that all these various departments are talking to one another.
Well, that was kind of the
And-
focus of our conversation, was like, we need to be collaborative. So for Parks and Rec, we're volunteer currently. So DPW, you have staff, but you don't have a ton of staff. So how can we offset what you're doing with maybe we can recruit volunteers to help. So the Hometown Heroes Project is a great example. So we know how many banners we would have to put up to start. But if it grows, we're gonna take on the onus of, we will find the volunteers to help offset your staffing needs. So I feel like that's the collaboration, right? It's a give and take. So our conversation was, well, what could what could DPW help with down here, and then what could we budget for, and where is the middle ground, and where do we need extra help? And that's what we're really starting to work on to help to create that plan we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
about here's what we need, here's what the cost would be, and hey town, what do you want?
All right.
Is this position description specific to Bolton, or is it kind of generic? Because when I read these, I look for what are the deliverables, not the fuzzy things that you can't measure, but what are the measurables, what are the deliverables? And a small town, Bolton, first time we have the position in place, might be a little different description than a more mature town.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make sure this is for Bolton, not generic.
So it's pretty generic because it's Clinton, except I made like 4 edits to it. So it's
So it may get modified.
It may get modified.
Yeah.
So when we read through it, it was
The more
like,
grand this is, that determines who applies.
I think if you go to 19
Costs of
hours,
things, and
Yeah.
19 hours is going to be a lot of X.
I
and
didn't
Y.
see maintaining walls in
This could use some editing, and just to really focus on your priorities and the skills and so the profile you want.
And it might be 6 things that
Some of this
We
about
just
twisting
want
and
you to
turning
do,
and the
not
ability to
25.
hear is a little,
Well, I think that's kind of legalese, so if you
Yeah.
have somebody within that role, and like I said, this was put together by a professional HR group, so I think they added in a lot of those
they must have
components.
charged a lot.
I'm sure they did. It was a pretty comprehensive report, but.
But I've never seen a job description like this, and I've worked a lot with HR folks, so I think you could be a little more focused on what you're really.
We can make it more specific and talk to different commissions that we
Yeah.
want them to be working
and
with.
Yeah.
certain buzzwords command more salary. I mean, that's how.
But it's a good place to start.
Yeah.
I would go and get other
Pilfering from a
job descriptions.
professional, yeah. Completely agree.
We can make it more specific, like the specific fields we want people to work on and different
I think when
maintenance
we,
plans and that kind of stuff.
when we looked at it in general, it was like, these are all the in scope of what we would need, being able to plan different events in town. It's pretty, the description is pretty high level in what you would be required to do for a Parks and Rec director.
Yeah.
To get down to some granularity, we could add in different parks and different things like that.
And measurable results. Like
And measure, yeah.
What kind of report do we want from them?
Mhm.
Well, Ann and I were talking before this meeting started about if you're open to it, we could reach out to you and kind of vet some ideas and kind of help you tweak this a little bit, so that by the end of the budget season.
You remembered that we were your liaisons and we forgot.
Yeah, so that's something
But then
you
you
guys,
came in 2 weeks early, so what am I gonna do?
yeah, so you guys may not be aware, but we try and have all of us kind of divvied up and have liaisons, so you guys have a little bit of a lifeline that you can reach to certain folks, and that's what Brian is referring to. So
Okay.
But while you're here, I did have a question for you guys. So we have like a draft of the open space and recreation plan. How involved was Parks and Rec in the drafting of that?
So,
Methinks it's a story.
I know I wasn't. And I've been on Parks and Rec for a long time.
a former member of the commission was more involved than I think the existing members were, but Rebecca did share it with us before it went final, so we did get a chance to review it. But in all fairness, I didn't really have a chance to go through it in depth, and I don't think, Joyce, you weren't on the commission, I don't think Linda.
I've never seen it.
Has ever seen it, so.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because we just had Conservation Commission coming in, and I think one of the things as a town that we're trying to do is like build some expectations about future needs that everybody's kind of on the same page on. And one thing I'm noticing is that like the communication across isn't always as good as it could be, because it seems to me like some of the priorities reflected in that current draft document are not priorities shared by the Parks and Rec Commission, which seems strange because it's the open space and recreation plan. So I'd love to kind of just get that more on the...
I'll get those stakeholders together and
Exactly.
amend or hammer it out.
I think to your point, a lot of these conversations happen in email. And what you're saying is we all need to get in a room. I remember when the first draft of the conservation, the open space plan, we all met here when that was still an open meeting area, and we talked about it. And then it went away for several years, and then it was dusted off recently. But I think we all need to work better as groups and communities, because we all have our special areas, what we're good at. And we could all benefit from having those expertise brought into what our different programs
Well,
are.
going through the exercise of understanding who your key stakeholders are, is really important, because otherwise you get something that meets this need, but is totally ignorant of all this other stuff that's going on. So.
And having a more global view of the town, I know a lot of conversations were happening outside of town, like on Facebook boards and things like that. And it's like, but if you look at it in a very, very blinder kind of way, you're not seeing all the other impacts. And I think what you guys are seeing is that everybody wants all this money, but the town has this certain pool of money, and how is that allocated? And I've talked to Dawn about this too, about all of our boards communicating better to the communities, because I think we're so, all in, but a lot of people who aren't on boards and commissions and departments, they don't know.
That's exactly
outside, right?
That's exactly it. I mean, you nailed it, and you get even in your board, right? You're all in, and even though I'm a town government junkie, I know what's going on with you guys when you're here, right? Because there's enough other stuff I gotta try and keep track of.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, collectively, we are, from an advisory standpoint, we're making sure we're making more stuff available. And so to that point, it is all about information. So that even if it is a townsperson who shows up simply once a year at annual town meeting, the hope is that they're going to have more information available to them walking into that meeting than they ever have in the past. That's our goal. From a financial standpoint, that's what we're working on. And you're right, it simply is going to benefit all of us, the more information available.
I'll tell you, when I first learned that was when we co-authored a letter to the editor about the town common and said you would prefer to see some of our current properties addressed before bringing on new property. And everyone's like, what are these properties? What are you talking about? No one's been working on this. We're like, we've been working on these for years. But that was a general consensus, and maybe it was more shame on us that people did, we just figured people knew, right? Because we were
Yeah.
doing all this stuff and, you know,
Yeah.
but they didn't, you know, and maybe it's just our time as a town to just push that out more. We have the town hall Facebook page, which is a great channel, you know, the new website, everything else, so.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe
I
you should
mean,
be putting an article in the warrant. Doing a presentation.
So the one going back to your budget, I know it was either last year or the year before, I can't remember. There was some uncertainty or misunderstanding around swimming and hourly
Right.
rate and all that.
That was
And
last year.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I feel as though it ultimately got settled, but the big question mark was it gonna be actual versus reality, or what was communicated to the lifeguards? How did that all work out? Where are you guys on that?
Okay. Do you want to speak to this? You know Linda heard this.
They got a raise this year, which we felt was the appropriate amount, and we were all happy with it. Did a separate question, did they get a cost of living adjustment this next
I
summer?
don't believe so.
Okay, so it's just
But I would
flat,
have to, yeah.
because
I
in the
think that
past,
was-
we've gotten cost of living adjustments.
I would have to look, because I feel like it was is it a big jump?
There was a big jump.
It was a
last
fairly
year.
healthy
So that
jump.
might have negated that, but I would have to speak to Donna.
Okay, yeah, I was
Yeah.
just curious, but
Yeah,
that we,
let me find out.
and we also voted to pay for recertifications, which was trying to kind of help to make up for the fact that, because 2 years ago, we told them it was going to be one price, and then we found out it was going to be another.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was very unpleasant. So to kind of help make up for that, because really, if you pay for the first certification on your own and then you're working for us, it seemed fair that when you have to recertify to keep your job, that the town paid for the recertifications. So we started doing that this year,
Okay.
and that made them happy.
But that, we made sure that was accounted for in the
Right,
current
that-
budget, so the
In-
numbers that we have.
Right.
In purchase
so
of
that-
services?
Right.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on 630, 650, guys? No? Yeah, so going back to the position, I think it's just having more of a conversation and getting some follow-up.
Okay. So you probably want to get through all the budget season stuff and then come back, or do you think?
I want to try and, yeah, I mean, I don't know if, I'd like to try and get as much information now,
Okay.
but to your point, is it this year, or does it make sense to really, dig into this and, put it in position for next year? And I think I would leave that to these two, to spend more time with you
Next year is
guys.
2020.
Next year's 2020.
Well, the next year that you would be.
FY19.
Yeah, it's gonna be, it would actually be.
A long time. We're in FY 18 now.
For 2020, I mean.
Started in FY, started in 17.
Yeah.
So far away.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in FY 18 now.
Right.
We're talking about FY 19.
So if you put.
And so
it
I'm
in
talking to you guys about potentially throwing.
July 1, June 30.
Exactly.
I'm all, how many tuitions do I have next year? What am I gonna pay in tuition?
All right, yeah, so whenever you want to get back together and talk about the position, any feedback?
Yeah,
on the
I
position?
think Brian and I need to set up some time with you and just sort of go through everything so we have a better understanding and can make some decent recommendations, or at least how to approach it.
Okay.
Great, that
And
sounds
I like
great.
making it more specific to Bolton.
I do too.
And we can do that because we know the properties and what needs to be worked.
Yeah.
So to that end, I'll entertain a motion to approve 630 and 650 as is.
Someone,
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Those opposed? Okay.
So we get paid the same amount next year.
I'm rich.
Thank you for what you do, and have a nice evening.
Same to you, thank you.
Glad I see you.
I know.
I'm gonna come up one of these days.
oh, weird.
You know what? Excuse me. So if we're to call one of you, who do we call and what's your phone number?
You can call me.
I'll borrow your pen for a second.
Connie, did you make that motion?
We always watch Good Morning America.
Did you see the
Isn't Joyce and Iris' daughter there?
So that way,
Atlanta,
we
because
could
she leaves
with
Atlanta
Nan
on Sunday to go to the game.
Emailed her.
I stayed up between the Golden Globes the night before and the game last night. Alabama.
Oh,
Look at, I'm wearing my shorts, and you know, I stuck with my Nick Saban thing on last night.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Aye, good night.
what's that? Not unbelievable.
That was unreal.
That's how we always.
That was an unbelievable
She was
game.
like,
Unreal.
so cute. I touched it once. I went down to the LSU game this year.
Oh,
Alabama.
really?
Alabama
Was
won.
the day, it was
Yeah,
the weekend
I know,
of
but
LSU,
They always
Alabama,
do.
and it was like
See you guys
there
later.
was no one on the street.
That was good, Joe.
So we're gonna be back together tomorrow night, however, in the Helton building. Brian, I saw you throw around some emails today around minutes. So basically, we're still looking for a little bit of some approvals, and then,
Yeah, so here's what, all I need from you is for you to take a look at the the November 27th minutes, because I added in who I thought made the motions, and if you can just confirm I'm right, then both that set and November 14th can be put on our website, because they're final. The December 12th minutes, we need a vote, either tonight or tomorrow. And then I just sent the January 2nd minutes today, so we might not be ready to vote, but if we are, we can.
Why don't we vote on them all tomorrow, so we'll have a chance to look at them, okay, we're ready to
Yeah.
go and do them at once. What do you
does
think?
that sound like a plan,
Sounds
guys?
Sounds good.
All right. I will do my best to confirm, and I try and make a note as we're going through, but even on that last one, I actually had it the other way.
Yeah.
But you asked, and they confirmed, but I was wrong. I had it, so, I'll look at
We'll
it.
do our best.
Yeah. All right, so, to that end, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Thank you all, have a nice evening.